Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another lesson of class. Why add when you can multiply? This is lesson 22 of Art Within Class, and it's going to be a doozy, so let's get into it. You're going to learn today. Let's just say that. It took me a minute to do this one because as we progress through creativity, logic, art, science, and spirituality, in these lessons, I'm going to start loosening up and showing you not only more of my personality, but how more complex things could get. But I want to give you the tools to understand what I'm saying so that you could use this in your own life to live a life of freedom. So let's get into it. Why add when you can multiply? Well, this depends on what you want more of. Now, I know some of you see me reading out of a book. I just write my notes in here. I used to have my notes in front of me because I used to watch a couple performers and they would have like a screen in front of them and I would see them, they would read their notes off the screen because I was like, how do they remember everything? What do they? And then I pretty much picked up on what they were doing and I emulated it because emulation is the biggest form of flattery. Anyways, let's get into it. So this depends on what you want more of. Example, do you want more life experiences? Do you want more money? Do you want more freedom? Do you want more time? Do you want more people in your life? Do you want a bigger network? You have to start being really specific with the things that you're saying you want more of. And then, of course, you have to acknowledge the fact that your result comes from your statement. What do I mean by that? The result comes from your statement. Well, when you're speaking, so on and so forth, a lot of people have a tendency of saying a lot of random things without fully acknowledging the words that are coming out of their mouth because they're only using the vocabulary in terms that they know. If they knew other terms or if they readily used other terms, then they would use those as well. And because, well, people always want to tell you what they're doing or tell you something, even if they're trying to keep a secret. People want to tell the truth, but they'll use their own language and they'll use whatever words they know to use that helps them think that they could get away with saying something that possibly may get them in trouble or may get them into a position where you think they're crazy, so on and so forth, etc. For instance, if you were broke or whatever, and you said, oh, I'm going to start a business and this, that, and the third, people will call you crazy. But if you were a millionaire and you said you were going to start a business, people wouldn't call you crazy. Do you see how that understanding and that double standard doesn't work in society, especially today? So this is why you have to be specific, not only with your statements and the things you want, but you have to actually know what you want. And we're going to get into that today. So let's move forward, shall we? So this is what you have to do to be specific. Okay, let's redo that. I don't know if you could see this. I write in cursive. Most people in schools don't even teach that anymore. So this is why you have to be specific with your words, okay? Now, if you study Tony Robbins or Ed Mylett or any of these guys, Lewis Howes, etc., you've heard of the reticular activation system. Now, I think Marie Forleo brought it up a couple times along with Mel Robbins, and I think T.D. Jakes' daughter spoke about it when she was on the podcast that I saw not too long ago. But the reticular activation system and how it works. So when I say you have to be specific with the things that you say when it comes to what you want in life and things like that, you have to understand that your brain works very specifically. It's not designed to exceed a certain capacity of energy output, right? Because the brain is over 2,000 years old and it's inherently lazy. So it's always going to look for shortcuts. Haven't you noticed that when you buy a car, all of a sudden everybody has the same car or everybody has your car? You start seeing it more and more. This is your reticular activation system being acknowledged because that car is now something of value to you. It's important to you. It struck you maybe emotionally, so it's stayed in your long term. And because it's important, because it's specific, now your brain is going to start seeing that thing everywhere. The same thing applies to what you put in your brain when it comes to this, not only the statements you make, some of them might be referred to as affirmations, if you guys are familiar with those, or words of endearment, things like that. or critiquing or criticism, so on and so forth, or feedback. And these are all different words to say the same thing, but your statements and the statements that are said to you and the words that are said to you are the things that trigger your brain, like Google gets triggered with keywords and it triggers the reticular activation system and it sets off different things in the head, or I should say in the brain, that can make you act positively or negatively. And then, of course, it drives you or it doesn't drive you. So if something impacts you positively but doesn't drive you, then that's going to be a disconnect. If it affects you positively and it does drive you, then you want more of that. If you have something that's negative and it drives you, let's say anger, frustration, so on and so forth, but it drives you to go to the gym, then that's a positive way, an outlet. But if it drives you to do other things, bad things, drinking, drugs, so on and so forth, then that could be a negative side effect of the negativity. Then, of course, your brain is lazy and it says, well, this is an easier path, or this is easier, so let's do this. Let's do A instead of B. Let's get with this instead of that. And then, of course, in life in general, things become easier. One of the things I try to tell people is that money makes people lazy and they forget a lot of stuff. Damon John wrote the book, The Power of Broke, along with a couple other books as well. And then you have Richard Branson, who wrote the book, Screw It, Let's Do It. And one of the things I learned just from the two differentiations of the different books, because Richard Branson in the book, Screw It, Let's Do It, when he wanted to start his magazine business and, everything like that, his aunt and uncle actually helped him out. It wasn't his family supported him, but his aunt and uncle gave him the money. And then, of course, he went on from there. Damon John talks about being broke and hustling and getting around the right people, so on and so forth, and understanding marketing. But when you're starting out, once you get to a certain point, people think they could just throw money at a problem and it'll solve the problem without having actual fulfillment. This is why I say you have to be specific with what you want in life, because you won't be fulfilled. And without fulfillment, my friends, you won't be satisfied in life, and you'll just keep striving for either more or something else until you crash, or you just give up and then you feel unsatisfied or unfulfilled in life, so on and so forth. So remember, the reticular activation system is, if you've seen other videos of mine where I talk about how the brain works like keywords, so I could say certain keywords like racism or the N-word, and people will get emotionally triggered. I could call someone a 304. They get emotionally triggered because in their brain and their mind, a 304 means something. But if they didn't understand English or the Ebonics or the slang that comes with that language, they can't get offended. And this is how people give away certain things when they try to pretend that they don't understand something, or they pretend that they don't know something. Like a language, for instance. There was a female I was hanging out with, and I'll give this example, I really don't care, but she would pretend like she didn't know a lot of English, but she knew multiple languages. She lived in Italy, and she lived in Italy, Germany, Miami, North Carolina. She knew French, Spanish, Italian, German, and English. And I said something to her, and I kept saying stuff in English, and I picked up already very early on that she was faking the front, or she was a player, as they say. She was trying to play the game with somebody who's already been exposed and grew up in it. And I said something to her in Ebonics and slang, and I said, "Oh, somebody said you were a mattress." And she quickly got triggered. Her body language changed. Her facial expressions changed to the correct ones that were supposed to fire off. Now, you can only catch those in a microsecond, like if you were driving in a car and somebody wanted to ask you a question. But if you were doing this in person, you could see the reaction. If you were driving in a car, they would have to have cameras. And when they ask you, "Hey, is your name Oliver Queen?" or whatever the case may be, and that's a quote, or I should say, a side kickoff to Arrow. If you ever watched The Green Arrow, it was pretty good with Stephen Amell, who's now in Suits. Anyways, But you can see the reaction. If you ever seen the TV show Lie to Me, that's based off of Paul Ekman, in the very first episode, there's a scene while he's, giving instruction to, I think it was the FBI at the time. And one of the geniuses in the thing said, how do you know the difference between a real reaction and a fake reaction? And Cal Lightman grabs the mug and he throws it at the wall really sporadically, spontaneously. And the mug hits the wall and breaks. And he goes, that look on your face right now, that's a genuine reaction. He goes, that's how I know the difference, so on and so forth. It's hard. Actors are trained to put certain facial expressions on, but there's only a handful of micro expressions that only come naturally. The other ones are controlled by muscle. And if you studied micro expressions, human behavior, and all these things, yes, it's very true. If you listen to what Andrew Bustamante says, not just one thing tells you if somebody's lying. It's all the things that add up: their pitch, their tone, their body language, their facial features, the way they're looking and presenting, and the way they act before and after being presented with information. All this gives you an ideology or an idea of where the person is at, if they're lying or if they're not lying. If you want something in life, don't lie to yourself. Tell yourself the truth. Look at your facial features. Look at your expressions. Look in the mirror and, tell yourself you're a business owner, so on and so forth. Now, those are words of affirmation, but it's something that's going to stay in your head. And then later on, if somebody comes up and says, hey, I heard you thought about starting a business, I guarantee you it'll ring up that memory. It was like, you know what? This morning I was telling myself in the mirror that I was a business owner. Yeah, I'm thinking about starting a business, so on and so forth. And it's just weird how all that stuff starts happening. But you won't know where to look or what to listen for if you don't train yourself to do it. Tony Robbins does this exercise, and I'll do it with you. I'm totally stealing this from him. But he said, and it's public, so I'm not concerned. But he says, look around the room and look for everything that's red. Look for red, look for red, look for red. You got a red lighter here. You got so on and so forth, etc. You got some candles that have a little bit of red. Okay, now stop. Pause the video and now tell me everything you saw that was brown. It's hard because you were looking for red. You weren't looking for brown. And this is how the reticular activation system works, right? And it's the same thing within psychology and things like that. If you get somebody riled up into a paranoid state, whatever's on their brain or whatever seed was planted there, they're going to look for. And then if you want to really mess with people, this is a magic trick, or more so mentalism, you can start to put the things that you seeded into their brain, into their environment, and they too will now think it's real. They will have a psychological experience that makes them look crazy, or let's just call it experiential. What is it? It was an experience, experiential, right? Experiential or something like that. Whatever. But it's an experience that they have, but it can make them feel or look crazy. And then the magicians are pretty much laughing because of everything that's happening, because either they're pulling a prank or teaching someone a lesson. But that's how that works. Now, this is not going to be a long video. However, I wanted to put emphasis on the beginning when it comes to being specific with your words and how the reticular activation system works, how it applies to lying so that you could catch yourself in a lie or others, and you can know and start to research things like human behavior, micro expressions, the reticular activation system, Paul Ekman. Watch the show Lie to Me. I promise you it's fascinating and interesting. It had 6 seasons, so I know it did good. But let's move forward from the reticular activation system now that you understand how it works, how to apply it, and we're going to move forward to now figure out how to get answers faster, right? So when it comes to getting answers faster and solving problems faster, I don't know if you remember another video I did, I talked about reverse engineering and working backwards, right? It's easy to steer or go to where the puck is going if you know where the puck is going to be. Hockey reference. It's easy to know where you're going when you already know how to get there. So how do you do that? Well, we reverse engineer. But we have to put a freedom plan together, as I like to call it. So let's get into the freedom plan. right? So identify specifically what it is that you want, right? Is it a better life? Is it a bigger house? Is it a better car, job, money, whatever, a relationship, etc.? Be very specific and detailed. This is something that's going to be about a paragraph long, so on and so forth, 3-4 sentences, etc. Be specific because we want to hit the reticular activation system later on. So this is why we need to be specific in the beginning. We don't want to go broad, we want to go narrow. Step 2, reverse engineer. Now that you know what you want, let's reverse engineer. As I mentioned earlier, this was something that I taught, but it came from Tim Ferriss. Tim Ferriss wrote the book 4-Hour Workweek and so much more, along with Tools for Titans, which is a massive book. But if you like reading or you want something to listen to, Tools for Titans is for you. So you can reverse engineer. Now, if you don't remember the video when I talked about reverse engineering, you want to ask yourself the question, what would this look like if it were easy, and then work backwards from there? See, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking back, which was said by Steve Jobs. And when I heard that, in lieu of also hearing Tim Ferriss and talking about reverse engineering, it made perfect sense. So I have an idea of where I want to go. I'm pretty specific about it. Now let's work backwards and ask the question, what would this look like if it were easy? And then, of course, number 3, I want you to utilize AI, or artificial intelligence, and the internet to do research, verify, and plan. So because ChatGPT, if you pay for the premium feature, or Google Gemini has access to the internet, you can use that quickly for research to get your questions answered. From there, you could go to the internet or the library to verify everything, because everybody knows that AI sometimes have what's called hallucinations or hiccups. So you can verify everything through journals online, or you could go to the library, or so on and so forth, and verify. Then from there, you can either go back to AI, have it help you make a plan, or you can write one down yourself. But being that we're in the Freedom Plan right now, we're just going to skip a little bit, and I'm going to show you a little hack to utilize AI. So whatever it is that you're doing, you're going to use this prompt with AI. You're going to say, I want you to become a collective mind of the top whatever thing that you're searching for. Is it love, money, relationships, etc., so on and so forth? Let's just use business, so on and so forth. Or let's use relationships. I want you to become a collective mind of the top relationship coaches in the world with over 20 years of experience. Your job is to assist me in attaining the best relationship ever. Do you understand? After that, it's going to say yes, etc., so on and so forth. And then you're going to ask AI to ask you as many questions as possible to accomplish this task in less than 6 months. I know that sounds fast. Some of you could adjust it to a year, but mainly in 6 months. So your prompt would read like this. Great. Now that you understand, I want you to assist me after analyzing my questions to help me put together a plan for the next 6 months to make this achievable when it comes to establishing a relationship that I want for my life. And then, of course, it will produce it for you. And then now we're going to get into everything, because now we know what we want. We reverse engineered, we worked backwards, so on and so forth. We researched, verified, and planned. Now we have to understand the reticular activation system and how to activate it faster. So a couple things you want to do. If you're getting into something new, this might be tricky. If you're getting into something that you already know, this will be easy. And what do I mean? Well, we become like the people we surround ourselves with, but we also become our environment. If you lived in a rural, poor area, you wouldn't look like Grant Cardone or these Warren Buffett or these wealthy people walking around there. Your clothes would be different. Your demeanor would be different. Your tone and pitch would be different, so on and so forth. Now, people will reflect to you what you reflect to them. So what I want you to do when it comes to activating your reticular activation system is, when you're thinking about this thing or when you're pursuing it, I want you to put yourself in the mindset that you already either achieved it, or that nothing could stop you, on your way to achieving it. Now, this will bring up some confidence, so on and so forth, but your posture will change. Instead of walking slouched like this, you might walk with your chest out, shoulders back, so on and so forth, more confident, etc. You may walk with your head up, so on and so forth, etc. Use conviction in your language when you're speaking instead of doubt. This will not only emphasize confidence, but if you were to doubt or say or whatever the case may be, people may look at you differently. You may come off unprofessional, but if you use conviction, your confidence will back everything up. And if you're talking in person and the person doesn't have technology readily available, well, if you're speaking with conviction, it's going to either make them think about what you're saying, and if they don't know what you're saying, it's going to make them want to research or look up what you're saying, and they can do that later. So these are some of the things that you can do, and in conversation. Then, of course, the environments that you put yourself in. You want to change not only the environment, not only the people, but the environment that you surround yourself with. Go to networking meetings, or go to speed dating events, or go to other events. And AI might say all this for you, but in different areas, business, relationships, etc., you may need to go to different areas to get what you need in order to keep your energy level for that thing up. Now, if you're new to the thing that you're trying to pursue, that you want in your life because you're pursuing change, you're going to want to utilize the internet and Meetup and things like that, maybe some social platforms, to find different environments or new environments for you in whatever it is that you're pursuing. If it's business, look for networking events. If it's for relationships, go to singles events or go to speed dating events. If it's for financial literacy, you can utilize the internet to teach you but so much, but it's better if you learn it from a professional in person or from people that are in that field. If you want to get into investments, go to an investment meeting or an investment networking event. And this is how you would get yourself around more of those people, but you would also change your environment. And the reason why I stated you want to locate all these places is because the last step in the freedom plan that I have written down here is take action. And I'm going to come up here so you guys can see it. It literally says take action in number 5. So after you have all this stuff, you've researched, you verified, you planned, you looked up other places, you know how to get yourself into state. And if you don't know how to get yourself into state, if none of my videos helped you, please, by all means, look up Tony Robbins, Mel Robbins, Marie Forleo, and all these people that are way more advanced than me and have years in the industry and space when it comes to dealing with the reticular activation system or words of affirmation or things like that. But then you want to go ahead and take action. The reason you want to take action immediately is because the longer you wait, the more you'll come up with excuses to not do the thing. Think about this. You're at an event and there's a pool, so on and so forth. Everybody's having fun. You dip your toe into the pool and you realize the water's cold and you don't want to jump in. So you wait jumping in and having fun until one of your friends come and tackle you into the water. You realize it's fine. It's not that cold, and now you're able to have fun. But because you waited so long, you missed out on the opportunity to see the person that you wanted to see or talk to the person that you wanted to talk to. You missed out on the opportunity of getting cooler instead of being hot, and so much more. But if you get the example, you understand what I'm saying. Now, a little disclaimer here. This will be a transition lesson. So this will be the last lesson that I actually speak on certain things, and I'm going to start combining language. So if you have questions, please put them down in the comments. And if you like this video or you pulled any value out of this so far, please hit the like button. But let's get back into everything. So you can see the multiple when you write things down, so you can look back and unload it from your brain. This is how you move faster, right? Once you free up space, you'll be able to operate more effectively because it's less on the mind. Most people don't write things down. They put it in their phone or whatever. You need to get it off your head to free up brain space. Think of it like a computer, right? You get rid of stuff off your hard drive, put it on an external or a journal, right? You put it on an external hard drive to free up space so your computer can run more efficiently, faster, so on and so forth. But if you need to, you can always go back to the external to get whatever it is that you need. And that's the purpose of either a journal or a notes app, whatever the case may be. But it's to also help you process things faster. So let's recap. How do you reverse engineer? Well, first you ask, what would this look like if it were easy? Or if this were simple, how could it be done? So on and so forth. Then work backwards from there. Now, when you're processing everything, I want you to do something that I'm also going to take from Tim Ferriss, but you're going to put a fear setting tactic into place. I was bringing this up a couple years ago, right around the start of COVID. It was called coronavirus at the time, but fear setting is very true. So you're going to make 3 columns. The first column is everything that could possibly go wrong when it comes to you pursuing whatever it is that you're pursuing. The second column is ways to prevent those things from happening. And then the last column is ways to recover if those bad things occur. Now, this could work for anything in life. If it's in business, it would be a standard operating procedure. If it's in life, it would be a life plan or a freedom plan, something like that, or a just in case crap happens, worst case scenario, right? Do this. This will become detrimental to you in the future, especially when you're going out and trying to speak with conviction. The way you're able to speak with more conviction is if you already know how to prevent the worst things from happening and how to recover from them. And the only way to do that is to prep or do pre-work, as they say. So in order to get better answers, you have to ask better questions. If you're working with the internet, people, AI, so on and so forth, the only way you get better answers is if you ask better questions. Remember, not everybody knows what you know, and that includes words and vocabulary. And if you're trying to get information out of people, you have to use their words, their vocabulary, their mannerisms, so on and so forth, in order to not only build rapport, but to break through, right? So let's talk about what's happening moving forward when it comes to class and everything else. So from this point forward, this is the last lesson where I'm going to use a lot of simple language for everybody to understand as students within this class. I'm going to start stepping up the language and bringing in some tactics that I had from my military past when it comes to different lingo, slang, my time in New York City, my time in California, my time in Arizona, and everywhere else in the United States and outside. And I'm going to be showing you tactics of how to use language, how to use speech, how to use words, but I'm going to be doing it during the lesson. Your job is to go ahead and either ask questions, leave comments, or anything that you have down below. And if you pulled anything out of the videos, smash that like button and then go out and try it for yourself so that you too can start to make connections, but live a free life and get away with the words you want to say. Because let's just face it, some people don't like what people say. And if they don't know your vocabulary, well, you could get away with saying almost anything. So I'm going to be educating you on that. And this will be the last time that I actually make a connection between the lesson and everything else that surrounds us. So if you haven't seen, if you haven't seen any of my past lessons of class, at the end of every class, I bring out either a whiteboard or I have a whiteboard. Now I have a phone. And I break down exactly what the number of the lesson is and how it connects to different things in the world. So let's get into it, right? Being that this is lesson 22, let's start there. For those of you who are studying psychology, so on and so forth, according to ChatGPT here, because I like to use AI to verify, not do everything, but to verify. Sometimes I get thoughts and I'm like, where did that come from? And then I go to AI or Google or whatever, and I verify it. And I'm like, whoa, I actually did know that, so on and so forth. So let's get into the number 22. The number 22 holds significance in various fields, starting with psychology. In psychology, especially in the study of numerology, 22 is considered a master number, representing a high level of spiritual insight and the ability to turn dreams into reality. And I'll keep going with that one. So in numerology, the number 22 is one of the most powerful master numbers alongside 11 and 33. Now, in the last video or lesson of class, I mentioned Tony Robbins and using art, right? And this is what I'm talking about, using entendre, metaphor, analogy, so on and so forth moving forward. But I gave a story about Tony Robbins and how I see him, because in psychology, when I was talking to a therapist, they gave us a round table. And I mentioned that I see Tony Robbins as two individual characters put together. Saint Anthony, who is the patron saint of lost items and things and so on and so forth. And you would say the prayer, "Oh, Saint Anthony, please come around. There's something missing and it cannot be found." And one of the things people have lost the most in this world is themselves. And Tony Robbins is great at pulling people out of the depths of anywhere and bringing them back and helping them find themselves again. Then there's another person called Kenny, or Kenpachi from Bleach, who is a part of the Soul Society. It's a fictional character, but he's a superhero / warrior, and he's actually the captain of Squad 11. Now, the reason why this is funny, and a friend of mine actually brought this up to me, Tony Robbins is actually, when it comes to numerology, he is an 11 life path. I just happen to be a 22-4. So yes, I am a 22, otherwise known in numerology as a master builder. But that was something that I thought was interesting, and I wanted to wait until today because, well, it is the 22nd, and, well, it would just be appropriate that I film this, record it, and put it out on the same day for all of you guys. So let's move forward. When it comes to the master builder, it is said it has the ability to transform dreams into reality. It combines the energies of 2, cooperation, diplomacy, and 4, stability and hard work, making it a symbol of practical achievement and deep intuition. In mathematics, 22 is an even number, obviously, and it is a composite number, so it's 2 at the same time. In science, the atomic number 22 represents the element titanium, which is one of the strongest metals outside of graphene and a couple other things in the planet, or in the world, I should say, on the planet, in the world, that we can utilize today to enhance certain things. In astronomy, 22 is the number of years it takes for Saturn, Lord of the Flies, that's an inside joke, to complete one full orbit around the sun. Maybe Elon Musk could go ahead and educate you guys on this because he seems to be popular in the news. Tesla and SpaceX, well, they deal with astronomy. He also knows about the Lord of the Flies. And I wonder if he's ever made a trip to North Carolina, since there is a Tesla factory over here off of 77. Anyways, in medicine, doesn't really coincide with anything, but this was something that was interesting. In culture and religion, in the Bible, in Christianity, the number 22 has a symbolic importance, particularly in the book of Revelations, right? Which contains 22 chapters, right? And then additionally, the Hebrew alphabet has 22 letters, and these letters are sometimes interpreted in the spiritual world or mystical context. So when it comes to that, numbers, or gematria, I think is how you enunciate or pronounce it, numbers relate to letters. So 1 would be A, 2 would be B, 3 would be C. And I used to do this in elementary school with my friends. We used to pass codes that way. Anyways, moving forward, in tarot, the 22nd card is the Fool card, representing new beginnings, spontaneousness, or spontaneous action, and the start of a journey. In Islam, the number 22 is also important in the Islamic tradition, where 22 refers to the day when the Prophet Muhammad received important revelations which later shaped the Quran. I can't make this up, people. It's right here, and you can Google it and look it up for yourself. So, last but not least, let's talk about, well, history. Throughout history, 22 may be associated with various milestones or events. For example, 22nd July 1946 was the date of the bombing of the King David Hotel in Jerusalem, a significant event in history, so on and so forth. So there's different things. It's not always going to hit, but this is how the number 22 not only fits in mathematics, but it relates to history, pop culture, so on and so forth, mathematics, numerology, psychology, knows about numerology, so they can't go crazy there. It connects to astrology when it comes to the planets and Saturn, so on and so forth. And if you're in spiritual world, you know Saturn or Lord of the Rings because of Saturn's rings, so on and so forth. But there's so much more out there, and I want you guys to now, from this point forward, start looking for the connections, not just in the number for the lesson, but what it is that I'm saying. How am I breaking things down? I will have some moments where I simplify things, but I will also be enhancing the language, terminology, phrases, analogies, and metaphors as we move forward and changing my language. Because remember, we started off in creativity and I had to be very basic, but I had to break things down to open up your eyes. You remember perception versus perspective. Right? And then from there, we moved into logic, very black and white. You had a lot of lessons. Each letter has 9 lessons in it. Let's just put that. With one introduction, that'll make 10, which means there's going to be 50 lessons. So in art, we're going to be using terminology from the art world, but from different art skills. So if you have a bachelor's in the arts, whether you're an artist, a painter, graphic designer, marketer, so on and so forth, etc., I'm going to be using your language and terminology for that's where I started before I moved into everything else. And then when we get into science, I will be emphasizing scientific, medical terms, so on and so forth, for you not only to understand, but so that you too can be educated and speak with that conviction and confidence as you succeed in life, as you move forward, and as you break through into your moment of freedom, so that when we get to spirituality, you don't really have questions, but you finally figured out how to listen, how to understand, and how to be heard by people. So, if you enjoyed anything about this, please like and subscribe, mainly subscribe and tell your friends about it so that we can grow this class together and so many more people could benefit from it and live a life of not only freedom, but, well, one that's better. So till next time, my friends, take care. Have a great day. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.